What is up, everyone? Thank you for tuning into the Bonus Point Podcast Major League Rugby Series. We took a week sabbatical off, just like Beauden Barrett heading to Japan. We wanted to just have a week off, enjoy ourselves, and then enjoy some footy. We're back, refreshed, ready to go, talk about some footy. I am back with my favorite guys, Cam and Walker Tice from the Rugby Index. If you haven't followed them on social media just yet, definitely do that. They have all the breaking news, statistics, everything like that for the Major League Rugby competition. Boys, we're back. How are we feeling? What's going on?
TJ, I think that's the first time and probably the only time I'm ever going to be compared with Beauden Barrett, so I appreciate it.
Hey, man, I speak truth. We compare gold to gold. I like it.
Not only compared, but with a correct analogy, with an applicable one.
Yeah. That is true. Yeah. So, well, I don't know. I felt like we all needed a break. We've all been very busy people. And I think we love chatting footy, but we can't do it week in, week out. So I think having a good little sabbatical was good. But let's just jump straight into it because we got a lot of good footy to talk about. And I'm going to start off with our rapid recap as usual. So we had our first match, NOLA Gold played ATL. 38-28 was ATL getting on top of NOLA. 45-17 was the score from LA and San Diego. I think a lot of people saw how that turned out in the first 3 minutes of the game. So that score pretty much reflects how it went. Utah and Houston, a very big matchup with a very big score, 50-43. Walker was talking about how much he enjoyed that one, so I can't wait to talk about this one. Another one that has a big, massive scoring margin, 53-12. Toronto Arrows against New York. That was a very interesting one to see, considering how Toronto's been a bit flippy-floppy. Old Glory DC and New England Free Jacks, 35-22. That was a pretty tightly close game. I'm excited to have the Old Glory DC in LA next week and watching them live with our boy Danny Tusitala. And lastly, the AGs went up against the Seattle Seawolves. 42-15 was the final score for the Gilgronis. That one was an interesting one. Unfortunately, we can't talk about that one today, but we'll see if we can get a little snippet of that one as well. But let's talk about our first game, boys. So NOLA Gold, ATL. So this first match, NOLA last week played in some very awful conditions, getting in basically a mud storm by the looks of it. And they came and they went up against a very tough ATL side. Walker and Cam, I'm going to come to you guys just straight away. What did you guys think of this matchup?
I was very surprised by seeing Atlanta come out on the front foot so early and so quick. They've kind of been the Austin of the East, where they've played strong defense but haven't been able to produce anything on offense. Honestly, I got to hand up, call myself out. I think I was pretty wrong about Batista Escura at 10. I think he found some balance between being just a pure playmaker and being a distributor. And honestly, the difference in the game was much closer than it may have let on because of Atlanta's fast start. But the difference was Adrian Carlse, who I think was the play of the week for the league by the Rugby Network, because he had 15 points off the tee. Mm-hmm. And I think you're starting to see that with a couple teams. Houston used that strategy against LA and made it very competitive. I think people are going to start finding that just taking the points and retaining ball in hand, and even if you don't keep it off the kickoff, returning it and pinning teams back is going to be a much stronger strategy than risking, kicking for touch and trying to line out and potentially losing the ball.
Yeah, I think ATL is able to disrupt a lot as well. They're a very physical team, and I wasn't necessarily surprised. I was just shocked a little bit when I saw a little bit of that where they did come out so fast. But Walker, what did you love about this matchup?
I think Cam's kind of on point. I think Batista played well. I think their back three, Carlisle especially, played exceptionally well. Rory Van Vliet is always very dangerous on the wing. I think, to be quite frank, I think this was a make or break game specifically for Atlanta. If they drop this game, they're at the bottom of the table in the East, a very competitive, brutal East. NOLA goes probably towards the top, if not the top. Mm-hmm. And I think Rugby ATL, not that they wouldn't be able to come back, but they're definitely on the back foot for the rest of the season. They come out, they get early points, and I wouldn't say they coasted, but they kind of just managed the rest of the game, went tick for tat with New Orleans, and they put on a very solid performance. I think this was a make or break game, like I mentioned, and they managed to make it instead of break it. And the best teams show up in big moments. So I think New Orleans, I wouldn't count them out by any stretch of the matter. The entire East is such just a gauntlet. I think DC is currently in last, but I don't even count them out. It's a total gauntlet to see who gets into playoffs, and there's still another 10 weeks of rugby left. So, I think it was a very evenly matched after maybe the first 15 minutes after Atlanta really kind of caught New Orleans, I guess, off guard, which, to come in any East Coast game at this rate, or any MLR game for that matter, unprepared or maybe nonchalant is shame on you, because it's going to be a dogfight every single time. But I think it was two teams that went toe to toe for 60 minutes. ATL just had the front foot for the first 15, 20 minutes, and that was the difference in the game.
So that raises a good question, because like you said, it's a bit of a dogfight when it comes to the Eastern Conference. Like when you look at the Western Conference, you can see clearly who's on top. You've got LA and you've got the AGs. They've got, I believe, 5 wins for LA, and then I think it's 4 wins for the AGs, or maybe 3. But the rest of the other teams, so it is 4. Yeah, but in the rest of the conference, it's quite hit and miss there. So if ATL can get a couple of wins under their belt and then have a crack, do you think that they still have a chance at possibly making finals or doing something like that?
Do you mean ATL or New Orleans?
New Orleans. No, I think no. I would say New Orleans.
Because ATL jumped up to second place, and I mean, look, it's a difference of I think a total of 3 points from 4th or 5th to 1st. So, I mean, take your pick by the week, and not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but obviously we saw what happened with Toronto going back-to-back weeks and absolutely throttling New York this week. Yeah. But I think New Orleans is a very talented team. Shout out to Dino Waldron, a double deuce on the tries this week. Anytime I can give some love to my front rowers, I will. You know that.
I need to get you a T-shirt made or something like that, man. It's just every week you just got to you don't even say anything. You just point at it. And then there's some random silent bit on our podcast and everyone goes, oh, yep, he's giving a shout out to the front rows. There you go. Okay. Yep.
But they earn it. Look, it's a double deuce.
I'm not saying they don't earn it. If anybody watches rugby and they say backs win rugby games, they're freaking lying. And I'm a back. So yeah, no, 100%.
All right, fair. Well, at least we're on the same page. But no, I think New Orleans. It's so hard to tell. I think we're really starting to get a good grasp of what each individual team is. New Orleans has the talent. There's no doubt about that. There's center pairings with Juan Capiola and JP Duplessis are arguably as good as any center pairing in the league, if not the best. I mean, maybe behind LA in Billy Meeks and Adam Cooper. They're probably behind them, but beyond that, it's toe for toe for everybody else, and if not the best. I love their rotation of the back or the loose forwards with Devin Short, guys like Cam Dolan, Monty's in there. They've got Malcolm May usually coming off the bench. They just have a really solid all-around team. Carl Meyer at 15 is really solid. I think that they've, for whatever reason, have come into games a little bit slow and or they lose a lot of their games in either the first 20 or the last 20. And I think that's indicative of leadership, and I'm not criticizing. I think New Orleans has done a great job of building the team. I'm not saying they've done a bad job. I just think the rest of the teams are doing that good of a job. or that much better of a job. You know, I think it's about composure. You look at their roster, and they do have a very young team collectively. Not a whole lot of international pedigree comparatively to the rest of the teams, or especially the upper echelon of teams. Ironically, I think Atlanta is also in that same category comparatively, but they've managed to find some, I don't want to call it strokes of luck, but just a couple of bounces going their way. So I don't write NOLA out, and I don't write anybody out in the East at this rate. We've got 10 more weeks of rugby, in theory, 50 more points to acquire. There is a lot of untold stories in the East. So get your popcorn ready. There's plenty of rugby to watch, and we'll find it out at the end.
I'm eating carbs again, so I'm down to popcorn. So we'll go there. But let's move on, and we'll talk about the LA versus San Diego game. Like I was telling you guys off air, I was lucky enough to attend that game live. I was able to be there on the sideline, and shout out to everyone who attended the first ever rugby game with fans at the LA Coliseum. Todd Clever, he shot an imaginary arrow to ignite the torch at the Coliseum, and we had, I believe, just close to 3,000 fans attend. And I think I saw one of the guys, he was talking about the average number of fans that are attending games, and I think it's close to 2,500. So to have close to 3,000 at the Coliseum, even though it seats roughly around 100K or something like that, but it's still great just to have people in LA with coming to attend rugby games. And I think it'll just start growing over time once people start to pick up traction. But Walker, I'm going to give you credit where credit is due, because I do believe that Cardi, as a number 10 jersey, filling in for Matt Giddo, he did amazing, man. Like, I watched him, and I didn't know much about him until I met him, I think a couple of weeks ago at the Giltini's facility, and then I watched him train. I watched him play. I feel he's the best player to have in that number 10 jersey for games if needed, if you can't get Matt Giddo, or if you need someone to slot into that jersey. You do obviously have a few other players that could put their hands up, but are they the right fit for first five? Hell no. They do so much better in that center pairing, or at that fullback position, or on the wing. But there were also a bunch of great players on the field in this matchup. RJ had a great game coming off the bench. JP and Charlie Abel had a great performance in the scrums, with Angus Cottrell making a tremendous impact on both sides of the ball, especially with his open play. Walker, I'll come to you, and then Cam, I'll come to you as well. Who stuck out for you guys in this matchup?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think Angus Cottrell got it off, I mean, obviously to an early start, and he didn't stop there. And he's one of those guys that traditionally the work that he has done on the field, it doesn't always show up in the stat sheet, sometimes in the tackle, sometimes it arrivals at the ruck, but just influencing the game, putting pressure in the back lines, and getting a front foot off of scrums, or whatever it might be. He's kind of a do-it-all very well guy, especially at that number 6 position. A lot of times you expect that from a 7, and you get that from both him in Poitevin and Cottrell. And so to have 2 loose forwards like that, oh, by the way, you have Adam Ash at 8. It's just, I think we give so much credit to this back line, but the loose forward play of LA really stuck out to me this week. And then of course Poitevin himself got the second try of the game. Yeah. I think at the 5th or 6th minute. So you talk about getting a good first foot forward, or actually, I'm sorry, that was their second and third try. After Ryberg dotted one down early.
He killed it, man. I love Ryberg.
Can't keep up with him. Scoring so fast.
Yeah, I know. So, it's like, I was talking to one of the guys who came and watched the match live, and we went and grabbed a beer afterwards, and he sat there and he was like, "Who's the guy that was playing on the wing that's like really stocky, and he looks like a hooker, but he's basically a winger?" And I was like, "Are you talking about Ryberg?" And he's like, "Yeah, that guy." And I was like, and he was like, "Man, he could play basically anything except lock. He's awesome." And I was like, "Yeah, he's pretty good, man."
Yeah, he probably could. He could play in the forwards if he wanted to.
Yeah,
honestly, I would enjoy that. and he can be an honorary hooker or an honorary loose forward. But when you put 3 tries up in the first 10 minutes, I mean, for all intents and purposes, signed, sealed, delivered, game over. It's cruise control with as much talent as they have. So, thank you for the credit for Luke Hardy. I took a shot in the dark. No, I really did think he was going to perform well. It's easy to perform well when you've got so much talent around you, to be fair. All you have to do is just manage the game, and he did that exceptionally well. I don't know that he did he had I'll take that back. He did have a very good game, a very solid game. So I think aside from the loose forward play, I think just they had a very solid game all around, and they're continuing to cruise. I don't know who's going to catch them.
Yeah, I'm the same with you, man. Like I'm looking at the schedule recently, and there's a couple of teams that I'm thinking, maybe they'll have a crack, but every time I've thought that, it's just game over. So yeah, I don't know. But Cam, what about you? San Diego and LA, who were the standouts for you?
For LA, it was Mahi Bailanu. I know he only got 40 minutes in, but I just love the way, especially when it gets down within 5 meters of the goal line, the way they use him on loop plays coming off of lineouts. I mean, he's got the size of a front row, but he moves like a center. And I think he really it goes underappreciated because he's not necessarily the one scoring the try, but off their lineouts with those loop plays they run with him, he's really putting a lot of stress on the defense. Dragging 2, 3, 4 defenders with him. And then while there's already congestion from the line out, putting that much more stress on a defense to try and get out wide with the backline talent that LA has, it's almost impossible to defend. On top of that, I think we might have a new MVP candidate. And not that it's new, but I think maybe a front runner in Goddard, taking it from Tusitala. I know it's 1-9 to another, so I'm fine with it. But the way Goddard's, and especially now that the last 2 matches, I think he's played a full 160 minutes. When you can get that kind of pace and play from a 9, it's pretty exceptional. Yeah. As far as San Diego, the 2 things that really stood out to me was they really, especially with Augsburger going down early, I think they really, really missed having a field general out there like a Joe Peterson, or even a JP Duplessis, somebody to organize the team while they're out there. I just don't think they really have that right now. And that's kind of what we've mentioned in the past. So they lack this continuity, and you can't quite put your thumb on it, but something just isn't clicking, and it's pretty apparent on game day.
I will say, I think that the Giltinis may have a pretty good matchup with the AGs because they do play Utah on the 15th at home, and then they have to travel to Austin to play, I believe it's Austin, at Bold Stadium on the Wednesday. So it's a really short turnaround. They may have to get some guys some quick recovery, or may have to sub in I don't know what a subpar team is for the Giltinis, but yeah, something like that. But I do want to talk about something that I believe you guys may be interested in too, and that's the refereeing, and specifically the lack of a TMO. Because, like I said, I was on the sideline. I saw a San Diego team player score a try right in front of me off a knock-on that the infield referee missed. But this is something that a TMO could have seen. I believe that the sideline referee potentially saw it, but he didn't really want to, I don't know, get yelled at because there are fans in the stadium or something like that. I don't know. I thought he was right in front of it. He might have missed it. But is missing the TMO affecting the American professional game, or is this something that the MLR can live without? Because I personally believe that it could potentially live without it, because 9 times out of 10, if we have high-scoring games like that, it's not really going to make a difference. San Diego could get a try taken away from them, but LA's still going to pump them in that game. But Cam, what are you thinking, Walker? I want to hear from you as well. Do you guys think that the TMO not being there is affecting the American game?
To be honest, yeah, I think. Well, right now it's two things. It's one, the finances of it. Putting that infrastructure in the stadiums is probably it's a lot more than probably most fans will recognize or think about. It's not so much as just slapping it up on the jumbotron and saying, "Here, watch the replay." There's a lot more infrastructure and a lot more that goes into it that the league just doesn't have the ability to do right now. And second is the part of the reason why they don't have the ability to do it is the stadiums they're playing in don't have the capability of doing it. So if you have to make the decision of, are we going to have it in some stadiums, some not? When do we decide to play with it? You have to make a decision that nobody plays with that at all times, and that's the only way you can keep some level of continuity amongst the competition. I think at some point it's got to happen. I was actually wrapping up the games we were watching this weekend. I was watching DC versus New England, and there were two tries that were clear. One that was clearly short and knocked on, that was called good, and another early in the match that was called held up, and the I believe it was Dever for DC was clearly down, and he because and to no fault of the ref, he wasn't in a position. The AR wasn't in a position to get eyes on it, and if they would have, and it was clear with the replay that he was grounded, complete control, and eventually it's not going to be in the regular season. It's not going to be early in the regular season. It's going to be in a playoff game or a championship game where missed call to no fault of anyone, but goes the wrong way.
Well, this is a question that Walker I'll follow up with is, do you think something like they have in Super Rugby Aotearoa, like they have captain's referral, is so they would have something where the captain, if they believe that something had happened, they have an opportunity to come and say, hey, let's consult with the ARs and see what they think, or something like that, where they could have like potentially a fourth referee who's roaming around the field and they could have a different angle or something like that. Do you think that could be potentially something that they could sub in to replace the TMO?
I'm not against it. I think anytime you add more eyes onto the field, and especially in a situation that there isn't TMO, it can be advantageous. The challenge is that let's say the fourth AR is at the one end of the field and helps out one team, and then later on in the game, he's at the opposite end and doesn't help out another team. Not in a malice way, but just by sheer coincidence. So it's hard to make that an even playing field collectively. Obviously you can put one AR on either sideline, and it's a relatively even platform. I think if you add one at the try line, basically at the back of the try zone on one end, you have to do it on both ends. I think it's a bit much. I'm not against it. I think it needs to have a critical eye to it. But I think TMO is just the next step forward for Major League Rugby to become commercialized in the way that we need it to be. Of course, we don't want it to be VAR like we see in European football and all that stuff, as egregious and challenging as that is. But when it comes down to critical moments, it hasn't decided a game quite yet, but to Cam's point, there were a couple of games in the game he watched. There was one in the Toronto game. I think Mike Shepard had knocked the ball backward. It came off of a New York player, and then Mike fell on top of it, and they awarded him a try. Granted, Toronto was already up 40-something to teens. I don't remember the immediate score. The game was over for all intents and purposes. But the three of us just listed 4 instances in one weekend where TMO would have overturned a try, and it's only a matter of time before that dictates a meaningful game, a team to get into playoffs, a team to advance in playoffs, a team to win a championship. So it's not a problem until it is. And to Cam's point, the infrastructure isn't there quite yet, but I think if there's a very significant way for MLR to get better, I think that's it. And it's it's a step that goes, in all irony, TMO is the tertiary factor of that. of MLR getting better. These stadiums in better proximity to cities and urban districts, and having access to alternative entertainment. It's how you drive better viewership, better attendance. Attendance, trickles down to, I don't even know if that's a word, but it trickles down to
Not as hard. You
trademark that shit.
I should have just rolled with it.
Yeah.
But it's that ripple effect to all these other things. So I think it's not so much TMO. I think it's venues holistically that we need to see a step forward. And that's how MLR gets better. But within that spectrum, TMO is part of that, and video review is absolutely part of that. And that's just MLR getting better. So detrimental, no, but a massive way to get better, yes.
And just in case anybody doesn't know, because they're a new rugby fan, TMO does stand for Television Match Official. We are an educational show as well. I know that the MLR commentators
put us on CBS.
Yeah, I want to be on Sesame Street teaching people about rugby. That would be great. But just in case there are a lot of new rugby fans, and I've even noticed that the Giltinis have started doing, I guess, what is it? It's like a rugbyology up on the jumbotron. So people will come and they'll see a knock on, and then a knock on slide will come up, and they'll tell you what a knock on is. So TMO, Television Match Official. If you don't know much about it, Google it. I don't know.
Giltini? I've yet to specify what that is.
I still don't know. Don't ask me. I know that it's a delicious beverage, but I've just never tried it before. But before I put my foot in my mouth, let's move on to Utah versus Houston.
Hold on. Can we talk about San Diego for a second?
What about them?
Exactly. You look at this lineup, and it's got U.S. Eagles all across the board. It's got Cecil Africa, Cam Clark, who's arguably one of the fastest players, if not the fastest in MLR.
Okay. So this is a good point that I want to make. So you brought up Cecil Africa. One of the coaches that I was talking to on the weekend is asking why Cecil Africa is not doing the kickoffs for the games. How many times in Sevens World Cups or Sevens games on the circuit has he just iced people because of how accurate his kicking in? He hasn't had one start off.
We should all be asking TJ.
Yeah, I don't know. But I watched him play on the weekend. I thought he played not amazing, but he did some quite amazing things. Like he had a great grubber kick that I saw that set up a good play, and he did produce a lot. But I'm just as shocked as you are, man. Like I've been following San Diego since day one, because obviously I've got a couple of mates in that team, and they've been on the map. They've been top 4 every season. But I think we have spoken about it in the past, where it has been the transition to Vegas, and they've had a lot of difficulties when it comes to playing at weird fields that they're not used to, training out of facilities that they're not used to. But we do have other teams that have had to deal with that, like Toronto, having to be in Atlanta. So I don't know. What do you guys have any insight about why you think this is happening?
I think it has to go noted that they've had a pretty serious injury bug. Most notably, I think Peterson's down with an injury right now. Osberger just went back down with an injury, and as we saw in last game,
didn't Rob Shaw dislocate his shoulder or something like that in his first
shoulder
game?
Out, probably to the last couple of weeks of the year. So that's pretty devastating when we talk about a guy that they're already short on a few matches for him because of his suspension, and now he's out for, depending on the grade, 4 to 6 weeks, maybe the whole season. It's
only a guy that has 300 caps in the Premiership.
That's good or something.
So he's useless, is what you tell me. He's terrible.
Okay, he's washed up.
Yeah. Oh man, okay.
That's egregious. I take that back. Rob Shaw. Yes. If you're listening or not, I apologize.
No, he's definitely. He's good. He's good. No, but let's move on. We'll talk about Utah versus Houston. So this game, massive score line, final score being 50-43. I thought I was looking at an NBA score when I saw the score. I don't even know. But I want to talk from a commercial standpoint for a second, because we all know that there's a big disparity in the league when it comes to the caliber of player. We've obviously got, like you said, we've got guys like Rob Shaw who have captained England, or who have guys who have played multiple international tests, and then you've got guys that are just coming into the league who have been playing high school rugby and some rep rugby in America. So there's obviously some big disparity, but there's nothing wrong with that, because obviously those players are obviously getting a lot of guidance and tutelage from those experienced players, and they're providing a lot for the league. But I want to know, do big scores like this help the league for the entertainment factor, or is the subpar defense, so the all-star like effect, does that turn viewers away from the Major League Rugby competition? That's what I want to know.
America is home of the brave, land of the we like big stuff, and that includes big scores. So no,
I can't believe you just said the land of we like big stuff. Oh my god,
we do. We like bigger and better.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, we appreciate our capitalist market, at least most.
That sounds like the tagline for Arkansas when they're shopping at Costco. Come on, that sounds awful.
If they're not using it now, they should.
Royalty rights.
American culture loves big stat lines. We don't want to see a grinded out match. It's the time has come and passed that we want to watch. It doesn't matter what sport it is, basketball, football. I don't know that even hockey. The days of a 1-0 game where it's back and forth, like, it's not exciting. We want points, and it kind of feeds into our consumerism nature, but that's what we want. And if that's what the people want, give them what they want.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have to agree. The rugby enthusiast in me and maybe the rugby purist in me wants to see a high level of quality defense. And I wouldn't say that was totally not prevalent in this. It wasn't prevalent, but it wasn't non-existent. There were moments of very solid defensive lines, goal line stands, whatever it might be. I'll tell you what, specifically the back three of Utah played out of their minds. I mean, Micah Cruz and Mikey Teo were on a war path. And just Mikey, it felt like every time Mikey Teo had the ball in his hands, he was either stepping somebody or he was just belly bumping them right off.
And best belly bump in the league right now.
Yeah, and like he just both him and then Micah Cruz, his long-haired twin brother. They are a dynamic duo in the back three, and Hagen Schulte is quietly one of the best 10s in the league. Having a very, very solid season, putting up points left and right, and his kicking game is phenomenal. Their center pairing in Calvin Whiting and Tyler Fisher is sufficient. I wouldn't say it's anything to write home about, but I also think Michael Baska is quietly a very good 9 for them. I wouldn't go so far to say one of the best in the league, but a very consistent, level-headed 9, which sometimes I'll take a level-headed 9 over a 9 that's going to have a couple of moments of brilliance. I just think that they have a very, very solid team all around. To answer your question around the score line, I'm here for it. It's going to attract new viewership. It's going to bring in an exciting new enthusiasm for rugby. If you see these really dynamic plays, and that's exactly what Mikey Teo and Micah Cruz were putting up, were very dynamic tries. It wasn't, they caught a lucky break. They were offload, inside pass, ruck breakdown, and pick and go and gone. It was very fluid, consistent rugby play. So I love it. And then on the flip side, Houston, you guys, Rob Povey had a little bit of a redemption game, obviously putting a hat trick in on his previous team. So while there was a losing effort, it was certainly not for lack of heart on his end. I, as a rugby enthusiast and maybe the authentic or the purist rugger in me wants to see a more competitive defensive effort, but I loved every second of those tries. They were high quality tries for the most part. So I don't know that there's a right answer, but I'm not against it.
So this is something that kind of raises concerns for me because I know that the Giltinis, they can play defense. Like that's something that I know that Stephen Hoyles is a big, great coach of. He's able to put together a game plan where defense is so solid, and I saw it over the weekend. That's why San Diego, they weren't necessarily shut out, but they were limited to limited points. But when they do play Utah coming in, I think it's about 2 weeks, Utah is in that third spot currently in the Western Conference. So if they can put together that many points, there's only so many times you can start chipping away at something until it starts kind of decaying and you're able to break through. So do you guys think that they could potentially be the first team to knock off the Giltinis, or do you think it's just Gil teams all day?
It's hard to go against the Giltinis, man.
I know.
I think for that, look, there's no doubt about it. Houston is not as good defensively as LA, and some of that has to do with how talented LA is in possession and on the front foot. Your best offense is your best defense is an offense. If the other team doesn't have the ball, they can't score. Mm-hmm. So there is some merit to that. On the flip side of that, both LA and the other Gilly team, Gilgronis, are both very defensive oriented and very solid on the defensive end of the field. So I don't know if that's coincidence, but both teams have a very solid defensive mindset. That as much as the Giltinis put up a lot of points, they don't concede a whole lot either. And there's that's what the great teams do. They find a way to do everything well. And until I'm told otherwise, I don't think that there's a team, until I'm proven otherwise. I don't think that there's a team catching Giltinis, and maybe once, but not twice.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. I will say I'm excited to see a lot of what Houston did. You know, Houston doesn't have, they've got a really good front row. I don't know that their second row is nothing to write home about, and their back row's good. It's, again, nothing to write home about. And I like some of the pieces they have in the back line, but the one thing they did extremely well against LA was match their ruck speed and their pace of play. And I think that's the formula to beating, or at least competing with LA, is, you know, playing their game. We've seen teams to try and, you know, contest to break down. Toronto did it for half, but it didn't work. They adjusted half and they blew them right out. And start that second half. So I think the formula to competing with them is beating them at their own game. And so I'm excited to see what DC can do, because they're a very quick team, getting the ball out with Danny Tusitala. So I don't know what they can do defensively to stop them, but offensively, I think they could probably give them some trouble if they're able to, you know, have clean breakdown and get the ball out as quickly as they have been up to this point in the season.
That is interesting, yeah, because I think the best comparison that I've heard all year is like the Brooklyn Nets. Like when they started, they were a terrible defensive team. They were awful, but they just scored so many points that they just kicked everybody's ass, and that's why they're
it just doesn't matter
right now.
I would say, but I don't think that's LA. LA plays solid defense.
Yeah, they do.
And I think, Cam, to your point, like you look at DC, and yes, they've got Danny Tusitala at 9, and they've got Robertson at 10, and you look at their best players, maybe the best 3 or 4 players, Jamison Fontanana, Schultz, and the best, you know, maybe 4 or 5 players on either team, and you look at them match to match or head to head, it's a pretty competitive game. But it's the other 10 guys in the field that it's just miles apart, and that's what makes LA so daunting, is that if it's not DTH Vandermeer, if it's Billy Meeks crushing you in the centers, or it's Adam Asher Cooper crushing you in the centers.
And Billy hasn't even been playing. He's
Yeah,
been,
well, yeah,
he's been chilling on the sidelines.
yeah. I think he's played what, 2 games maybe.
Yeah.
And then you've got a front row with Charlie Abel and Cam. You mentioned him earlier, the hooker.
Mahi Bailano.
Yeah, Mahi Bailano. Even JP Smith, one of the brothers.
Actually, shout out to JP because he just had his kid. So shout out to him. His wife just gave birth, I think, in the past couple of days.
Twins, yeah. Twin love.
His other brother is currently in Brisbane playing club rugby. So they're both playing pretty solid rugby still. It's
Smith brothers,
stuff.
If you're listening.
Is Ron not going to make it over this side this year?
I don't think so. I haven't spoken to him personally, but I don't think that he's going to. It doesn't look like it. And it's tough because he's playing for my most hated club in Brisbane, Brothers Rugby Club. And if Harley, you're listening, I hate the brothers. I hate Filthy. They suck. But before I get too angry about that, let's move on. It's called the bonus point for a reason. And there's been some big news coming out of Seattle. They made some very big changes to their coaching staff recently. They've got some powerhouse names in charge. It's pretty crazy. So you've got Alan Clark, who is the former Ospreys head coach, former head coach so it's the former coach of the Rooney Forwards, Kees Lensing. He'll move back to the assistant coaching position, and director of rugby, Pate Tulavuka, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, will move into the interim head coaching position for the remainder of the season. But the big news is that former Irish Test player Rory Best has now been added to this lineup of the coaches for Seattle. So Best, if you don't know, is the most capped player in Irish history, playing 124 times for Ireland, leading as captain 38 times. And this is a moment that I do like to forget, but every American likes to remind me of it. He was the captain of the Irish team that famously beat the All Blacks in Chicago. So every person that reminds me of that, go F yourself. I hate you for bringing that up every time the All Blacks come into a conversation. But I want to get your opinions on this, guys. So obviously Seattle, they've had a really awful season as they're currently at the bottom of the Western Conference. We know they can play some tremendous footy, though, because they are back-to-back champs in the MLR. Is this the shift that the Seawolves need to get them back on track?
It could be. Time will tell. I think, they kind of got away. They kind of focused, or this year they started focusing sort of on the wrong keys of what made them so good in the first 2 seasons. They were not only were they incredibly good defensively and powerful runners, and played this kind of territory pin you back type of game. They're incredibly good at contesting the breakdown, and this year they've been almost non-existent. So I think bringing someone in like Best, who was known for many things, but one of them being his ability to contest the breakdown and to get those steals, and if not, just disrupt play, slow down the other team. A shakeup like this it's probably coming later than it should have. I think it was probably something we might have seen last year, the rumblings of last year, with that rough start that they had, but there just wasn't long enough season to kind of say, enough sample size to say, yeah, we really need to change some things up. And that's no fault of Kees Lensing. I just don't think that the style that he's going for is one that's going to succeed in the MLR year 4 or 5, 6, 7. It's a style that worked in 1, 2, maybe 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think. Yeah, no, you go, Walker. Sorry.
Well, I think the principles of it can succeed in MLR, but the execution of it obviously isn't there. Ben Sema being out doesn't help. I mean, the power of his boot has been very obvious, and the quality of his kicking with Seattle. To touch on the new leadership, I think it's a step in the right direction. Fanboying aside, I love Rory Best. I think he brings a very even-keeled demeanor to any moment in any rugby match. And given the current juncture in Seattle's season, you need a little bit of a calming presence. A guy that when he steps into that huddle or that pregame speech or practice, every single one of those players is attentive and acknowledges the power that he has in what he says. There isn't a single player on that pitch that doesn't recognize the quality of Rory Best. And so I think that there can be a very much so alleviating presence there or calming presence there. Is it a silver bullet to flip the script? No, not. I mean, he's not going to be playing the game, so you still have to. You know what I mean? Like you still the game is still won and lost by the 15 on the field.
Could you freaking imagine he signs like a $1 contract and he just comes in like for a couple of games? Oh man, I would love to see that.
I would start a GoFundMe tomorrow, and I would be the lead financier. I want him in MLR. When I first saw the headline, I was like, Rory Best is playing hooker in MLR. How do I get to Seattle? To take out like what? How do I make this fruition?
I'd meet you guys there. That'd be freaking awesome. Never been to Seattle. That would be the best first time to go.
He's only coaching, so it's. I mean, I'm not excited about it, but my energy level went from about to a 14 to maybe an 11 out of 10. So, it was a real letdown. But no, I think like I mentioned, I think it's going to continue to bring a calming presence to the environment that they have up there in Seattle. Look, Seattle was back-to-back champs for a reason. They have a methodology that has worked in MLR. I think the principles of their game plan can work in MLR, but the execution of it hasn't been remotely close to there. So get healthy, add some reinforcements. It still seems like every team is adding in a couple of players here and there. So is there room for improvement? Sure. Are they making a monumental pivot in the middle of the season to come back and contend for a title? I think this is the end of Seattle's reign pretty confidently on that.
I do agree with you. I honestly think that Rory's addition alone will be great for the Seattle outfit, and I think moving the coaching staff around and just putting those guys in their respective roles, I think that'll make a good thing. I know that he's been working with the Ulster side as an informal coach and helped them to a monumental win against Leinster, and he's obviously got a lot of great wisdom, like you said, to impart on the team, and I think a lot of guys will do that. Do I think that it's too far gone in the season and we're up to week 6 now and they're at the bottom of the ladder? Yeah, definitely do. Unless teams like LA, the AGs and Utah all have blunders in the next few weeks, they won't be able to do anything, I don't think, except restore morale and team pride. So I think it's, like you said, it is a good step in the right direction. If he sticks around for another year, man, look out next year.
And Clark, he's going to go back and coach Dallas, correct?
If Dallas actually turns up next year.
Yeah. I believe that they will. But all the same, as a player, you're in a turbulent season. You have a coach that you don't even know that's going to be there next year. These guys coming in, I got to believe that it's with the effort to intentionally be there for more than 1 year. I don't think it's pomp and circumstance or just smoke and mirrors that these guys come across the pond over to Seattle for a 10-week stint. I legitimately think that this is an opportunity for them to start a new career or a new path. So I hope that brings some sense of spark for the future. And look, as all of us as former players, if you don't believe in a coach, how do you believe in what you're doing on the field? Yeah. And that's not a knock to Clark's ability, but it's about chemistry. It's about continuity and synergy. And look at San Diego, another West Coast team that it's just a weird situation. If there's not that continuity, that chemistry, and that synergy, you can have all the talent in the world. It's just not going to work. And I think Seattle has that talent, maybe not to win the title again, but to be a very solid contender or competitive, much like they haven't been.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think, I hate to make another basketball analogy, but you have like the 04 Lakers who had like one of the best teams ever assembled, and they didn't do jack. So there you go. But yeah, I agree with that. I think that Best is going to make a good impact to the Seattle and the league. And if you guys want to get T-shirts made and we can go watch a Seattle game and just say we're here for Rory, that's it. Then I'm down for that as well.
We'll have to buzz our heads and
I already did it. Why do you think I'm wearing a hat right now? Yeah, come on. I'm one step ahead.
Because you're in sunny California, bro.
Yeah, I know it's going to be damn hot soon. It's heating up now, but I don't know. I can't complain.
Well, so we can go to the Seattle DC game. We can wear one half, just shave our heads, and then the second half we'll put our blonde wigs on.
I forgot about that. Yeah, we got to get our wigs. I totally forgot about that. But to bring it back to the New Zealand Island game, shout out to Santa Monica Rugby Club and Stephen Johnson, because he was supposedly at that game, and he said he'll be sure to remind me next time I see him. So that's going to be great. I'm going to really enjoy that. But boys, great to have you back. Great episode. Super excited to jump in and talk more Major League Rugby next week, because there's a few games we got going on. Who are you guys most excited about for this coming week? Have you got any games that you're looking forward to?
Let's pull up the lineup.
I was going to say, I got to be honest with you. This was a pretty jam-packed weekend. There were 7 matches of all, I think, or 6 or 7 matches, right? It was a pretty full weekend. So I got to be honest, I haven't even looked ahead.
I want to say that we've got what is it? Who is it? Old Glory DC coming up this weekend. I can't wait to see Danny play live in the Coliseum and just rip it up. Also, I think Toronto versus NOLA is going to be a good matchup. I'm really excited for that one.
Yep, I agree. I think this is a game that look, if Toronto can put 3 together, you will hear me first. I'm on the Toronto train, and I spoke with Bill Webb not too long ago, and he was very transparent about the fact that they had literally no preseason games. And I think you've seen the growth of their additions over these first 6 weeks, especially in their back 3. And you look at just how dynamic their offensive attack has become. New York they just couldn't mark man for how dynamic their play was. There were so many options, inside, outside, guys inserting into the line. By the way, and of course now I'm drawing a blank, but their number 11, the 6'4", 240.
Manuel.
Manuel.
Montero.
Get out of town! Just
a second row playing wing.
Yeah, and he moves so well. It just pass. There's not many guys that I wouldn't stand in front of. He's wholeheartedly one of them, out of town. And so I'm.
Thank you.
I think Hey, your try. And I think their whole team is playing well. They've got a deep front row. I've mentioned that. I think maybe not the last pod or maybe the pod before that, but they're 6-7 deep at the front row, which means a lot in MLR these days. They've got all the talent in the back line. I'm excited for Toronto to really hit their stride mid-season now.
Well, we got some good rugby to look forward to. Big thank you to our sponsors, Whalebird Kombucha, OsteoStrong LA, and Macro Butter, keeping my macros in check. But we will be back next week, same time, Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you don't know what time that is, just look at your world clock and figure it out. I don't know. I have trouble enough trying to figure out what time it is back in Australia when I want to talk to my mum. But boys, always a pleasure. Can't wait to talk rugby with you guys next week. Any final words?
Rory Best is the best.
Rory Best is the best. I love it. There you go. All right, cool. Thanks, everyone, for listening. See you guys next week. Have a good night.
Love you guys.